All right, Gloria. Well, I am so happy to have you on the podcast today. Welcome to Kingdom Builders. And the intention for our conversation today is really to share your testimony and to share for us to have a conversation around the changes and the revelations that we've been going through in coming back to Christ. And to kick us off, I'd love for you to just give our audience a general background of who are you in the world? What do you do? And like anything that you want to share you think is relevant about your background before we get into your testimony.
Sure, yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be a part of Kingdom Builders, especially on this first episode. So my name's Gloria Merrick, and I am a multi-passionate entrepreneur, artist, and aspiring homestead wifey. And I am I have my hands in a few different things in the world. So my company, Lavender Moon Spaces, creates eco-friendly alternative tiny spaces, and I'm really passionate about healthy homes. And then my artist career as Glow is also budding and going through a lot of transformation, obviously, after this as well. And I am a wife. I love cooking, homemaking, and my goal is in the next few years to have a homestead and literally just be a homestead wifey. I'm on the track of just getting my business and my husband and all the different things set up so that I can do what I really enjoy, which is making food and making beautiful spaces and living in a harmonic, natural, non-toxic environment.
Sounds amazing. I'm so on board with this. I'm also feeling the pull towards let me just get a few acres in Texas Hill Country and settle in with babies and chickens and
Yeah.
well, I think you have such a powerful and unique testimony, and I'd love to just give you the floor for a little while and let you tell the recent transformation that you've been on, what sparked it, and who you were before in the new age. Like, what was
Mm.
new age Gloria like? You're married, so the testimony of how God is working on you and your husband and your marriage is so powerful. So, I'll let you speak into that, and we might jam on that some more. So, yeah, just kick us off.
All right. Well, let's just dive right in. So 2 months ago, I got covered head to toe in poison ivy. I was clearing out a bush from my backyard so that I could clear out the hot tub and take a dip in the pool. And little did I know that would be the start of this entire transformational, like complete metamorphosis of my story. So I'm back there cutting down some bushes, cleaning out the hot tub. I had just done like a solstice ceremony sound bath thing the night before, and I was like, got this vision for my business, and I am ready to rock and roll. Life was feeling like great. I was feeling on fire again. My husband was gone, so you know, sometimes it's nice when your partner is gone because then you have like the house to yourself and you just like twerk in the kitchen and do all the things, you know. So I'm just like having a ball, having an amazing day. And I cleared out the hot tub. It was disgusting. Cleared out all of these bushes and was dancing and inspired and excited. And next thing you know, the next morning, I was like, we were hosting an event at our house. We did like yoga and a sound bath, and we were doing it every Sunday. So we had people over, and I believe Anthony was gone at this particular weekend. And I looked down and I'm like, I think I got poison ivy on me or poison oak. I didn't know it was poison ivy at the time. I go into full freak out mode, go down, look, and realize that I had just gotten completely immersed. Basically, half of all of the bushes that I was cutting down were all poison ivy. I didn't know what poison ivy looked like. And if you know my past, you would know this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me because I am allergic to poison oak and poison ivy. And I'm allergic to mangoes, which are all actually connected in a weird way. So I have a hypersensitivity to it. I didn't know I was covered head to toe in it. I took a shower, but if you don't like wash the oils off, it will stick on you, and it's pretty miserable. So the next week was pretty torturous, head to toe. Everything was swollen, and I ended up getting, some Western medicine, prednisone steroid thing. I didn't know what it was. The doctors didn't tell me what the side effects were going to be of this thing. But I just wanted the swelling to go down. I was day and night, like smoking until my lungs gave out because I just was in so much pain. I didn't want to take any pain meds. I was just heavily medicating with cannabis and tobacco and just doing everything I could to try and get through this torturous, like horrible experience. And then it gets worse. So the prednisone lowered the inflammation, but it messes with your personality and so many other parts of your body. So, my emotions were all over the place. I was completely irrational, erratic. I was having like complete manic episodes, honestly. Like the littlest things were making me irritable. I was just in a really deep state of fight or flight. And then next thing you know, this weird bump shows up on my head. And I'm like, what is this? I think I'm about to die. I think like I have cancer. I've always had these like, throughout my life, weird moments where like I'm gonna die young, So I just like, this is my moment, I'm gonna die. Cancer, like I don't know what's gonna happen. Like the worst, my mind was going to the worst place possible. I'm calling all my uncles who are doctors. I'm calling the doctor, calling a friend. I'm just calling everyone I can. My uncles assure me that it's fine. The spot where this bump is like nothing to worry about. And I'm just like, when is this torturous chamber I'm in gonna end? Like I finally got over the poison ivy, but then now I'm like worried about stuff, and the bump is on my head. I call a friend and I'm like, hey, what, like he had done some work on my neck and my head and like my body, and I was like, maybe he'll know like what's going on. And he ended up offering to do like a bodywork session on me, and I'm like, great, that would be amazing. I've just been through a week of torture. I really, really need some help. So I go in, do 2 2-hour sessions. He ends up doing this like particular type of body work where you like actually release on the nerve endings. So I'm having all these memories like come up, like traumatic things and uncomfortable things like throughout this bodywork session. But I'm thinking, it will go. Like once I get through all of this pain and everything will finally go away. Like I've been through the worst of it. Little did I know, immediately after that second session, my heart was beating out of my chest and it did not stop. It went on all night. I could not sleep. I had a babysitting gig the next day because I was like, you know, I want to get into feeling what it's like to be a mother and like being around kids. And so I get no sleep. I'm laying on the sound lounge, doing all the modalities, trying all the tools that I have known to me in my house. And, I'm sitting there and nothing is working. I don't get 1 ounce of sleep. I'm sitting there with the worst insomnia and anxiety of my life. And I've never been a person to have this kind of stuff happen to me. Like I've never like worried about things to this degree, never felt insomnia to this degree. So I was really, really confused. Long story short, I have a panic attack, and the next week is full of many, many more nights like that. I tried and did everything that I could possibly do to lower my anxiety and insomnia, and nothing was working. Um, but at one point, I got a glimmer of hope. My friend came in and led me through a meditation, like a self love meditation, because at this point, my mind was just, it felt like it was gone. Like I felt like I was going crazy. I wanted to go to the ER multiple times because I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I was going to die. I, talked to a doctor and they wanted to prescribe me anxiety medication, depression medication. And I was like, I refuse to. I know what that does to people. So I am just determined to get through this naturally because I don't want any of those substances. And it ended up forcing me to deal with so many uncomfortable sensations in my body, and all just everything came out, it felt like. But this moment in time, my friend led me through a meditation, and she asked me to imagine a time in my life where I felt the most peace. And my mind immediately went to when I was 21 and I had just started my real estate career. I was doing the 5 a.m., miracle morning, and I was up on this mountaintop, and it was just me and God. I was I had a very close relationship with God at that time. I had a transformational experience when I was 16, 17 after a near death experience. And a year later, I became Christian and I was very, very devoted for 5 years. And so my mind went back to that moment in time when I'm with God. My faith was so strong. I wasn't worried. I wasn't confused about my life. I felt like I had a purpose and I felt peace. And so that moment like lodged into my mind of remembering what peace felt like in that time in my life. And it started me over the next few days really thinking about my life and the path that I've been on the last 9 years since I walked away from my faith in Jesus. And I realized so much of that time period had been chaotic, and it was just undeniable to me. I couldn't deny that my life had felt like chaos the last 9 years. Yes, I, went to music festivals. Yes, I, found my partner, and yes, I did all of these things. I moved around. I tried all the different things I wanted to do with my life. I tried and I did, but I was still unhappy and I was lacking peace more than anything. It was like I did all the things, I tried all this stuff, but the last like 10 months of my life felt like it didn't make sense. And I just I couldn't put the pieces together. So I felt like I finally got to a point where I was like, okay, maybe I need to start looking deeper at my life and see if these all this health stuff that's coming out is a result of maybe the ways that I've been living and not just the, poison oak or poison ivy, not just the medicine. Maybe there's something deeper here I really need to start looking at. And so I really started reflecting a lot on my life and realizing that my life, since I walked away from walking with Jesus, had way less peace. And it was a constant search, a constant looking for the next thing, but unhappy with what was. And I believe that's because there's a hole in our heart that can only be filled by God. And so it's like, we're always going to be looking for the next thing. We're always going to be seeking for the next thing, but we are truly in our heart of hearts meant to be living this life with God because he created us. And so ultimately I was living out of my design. And that's why I wasn't finding the peace and the happiness that I was desiring in my life. And so this moment brought me to my knees. And, I'm having these revelations and I'm thinking, oh, maybe it'll go away now that I'm realizing this stuff, the insomnia and the anxiety and all of the negative thoughts that were spiraling in my mind. It didn't. So I'm having these realizations and I'm still in the belief that like God is one and universal God and all these things, but I keep being stuck in this state of absolute misery and torture. And I finally, my husband had bought a Bible recently. And so I keep looking over at this Bible he bought like a few months ago. And I'm just like, maybe I need to like read the Bible. Maybe I need to pray to Jesus. And it was just like I would go through these really intense anxiety attacks. So, there's I think I think there's a difference between panic and anxiety attack. And the way I would define it, panic attack is when you literally think you're going to die. Anxiety attack is when you're spiraling out. And so panic attack is what started at the beginning of everything. And I had a few throughout, but it was mostly consistent anxiety attacks every day, every night. So I'm having another anxiety attack. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I literally need help and I need something outside of me to help. And I've already called on everything I could imagine outside of me to help, and it hasn't worked. So let me try Jesus. And Anthony's with me in the room. And I just like, I pulled the Bible up next to me and I just like am holding him and tears are just streaming down my face. And I'm like, Jesus, I need you. Like, I don't know what else to do right now. And I start flipping through the Bible, and every passage is speaking to me. It's talking about, these people who have left God and have come back to God. And I literally was like, let me just see what happens if I open the Bible and like flip to a random page. And then I flip to another random page. And then I flip to another random page. And every single story felt like God was speaking directly to me. And it was just this unexplainable, like out of body transformational experience happening in this moment where it's like God is coming into my life. I'm realizing I need God. I'm recognizing the power of Jesus. And I call my mom and dad and I'm like, Mom, pray for me. Like I want to come back to God. So they pray for me and I'm just like, what is happening? Like, what am I doing? Like, like, is this really happening right now? Am I really doing this? And, I think having an experience like this before, made it all kind of, I was able to like move through these motions and know what they would do. Um, because I had a coming to God moment before that was very similar to this and then walked away and then coming back again. So it was like, it felt like in that moment, I just knew what to do. And I was just being led and guided. So that night was the first night in a week that I was able to like sleep through the night. And I was like, there's no denying it. Like I've done and tried everything this last week. I read the Bible. Prayed to God. I prayed to Jesus, and this is real. Like it was just one of those undeniable experiences where I'm like, okay, I know the power of spiritual practices, but coming back and experiencing this in that moment was something, it was different. And I always resisted going too deep into certain like worships of like goddesses and other deities. I really only ever got close to Buddha in a way, but only just through going through a Vipassana experience. But I feel like there was a reason why, and it's because I knew in my heart of hearts that it wasn't Jesus. And I had known the power of Jesus before. I've read the Bible. I went to Bible college. I've learned all of these things. So I feel like there was a part of me that just knew that there was nothing as great as the power of Jesus. And I got to experience it that night. So that is the long story of how I came to Jesus in that moment. And the rest that has unfolded ever since then. There's so many different areas I could go into, but I want to pause and just know if there's any direction you want to go into from here.
I'm just feel the tears in my eyes and the prickly goosebumps as I'm listening to your story. And what a story. I would love to hear more about how is this unfold. I mean, I think a lot of people listening to this can have that empathy for, wow, the coming to God moment is so powerful. And many people listening to this may have had a similar experience and know just how much then your whole life changes. So I'd love to hear, how has your life radically changed since coming back to Jesus? And what's been even more amazing to witness is you're in marriage, you're in this covenant with someone else who, like, when you start to radically change, I'm curious, how has God been working on the heart of your husband to the extent that you want to share? Because I think a lot of people may also have an experience of feeling very strongly or pulled towards Jesus, but then worried about, what are other family members? Am I going to lose people in my life because I'm having this pull? Will they come along with me? Will we be transformed together, or what? Just like confusion or concern about that part of their life. Just a few
Yeah.
not big questions.
Yeah. So honestly, I'll start with saying that that experience was so radically spiritually like real for me that I couldn't deny it. And when you have an undeniable spiritual experience, it changes you. And so there was a part of me that was like, I don't know what's next, but I know what I experienced was real. So I'm just going to hold on to that right now and and see how this unfolds. I had no idea, but I was in such a state of chaos that it was literally like one thought at a time. one thought at a time. I couldn't even get to the next day or the next hour. It was one thought at a time. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna hold on to what I know is real. This is real. I'm starting to read the Bible again. I'm starting to pray. And 5 days later, after this experience, I fly to San Diego to be with my family. So on the way there, Anthony and I get into a horrible fight in the car. On the way, I leave, and on the plane ride home, which, keep in mind, I'm still like healing from this like massive nervous system, like dysregulation, because this was the poison oak, poison ivy thing. That was a whole week. And then I had a 3-day break, 4-day break, and then the insomnia anxiety thing started. So it's been about 2.5 weeks now that I have been stressed, anxious, completely overwhelmed, nervous system absolutely dysregulated. I was barely eating. I was losing a lot of weight. So I am just, totally out of it. I barely make it onto that plane. I had to call my mom and be talked through an hour and a half of packing just to get on. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. How do I pack? How do I get on a plane? All my clothes are full of poison ivy and I don't want to put them on. I don't want to pack them. And she's like, just put your dirty clothes in a suitcase and just, pack your stuff and go. And I was like this close to being like, I can't even do this. And then we get into a fight in the morning and I'm just like, how the heck am I doing this right now? I don't know. I guess I got Jesus now, so I'm gonna do my best. um, so we get into a fight and I get on the plane and I basically write like a farewell letter to him. I'm just like, I'm done. I don't know how this is gonna work. Like I'm complete with this, and I'm convinced that at this point, I don't know how we're gonna do this thing together. And, I'm still in recovery of a lot of these different things I've been going through. So my mind probably wasn't completely in the right place, but I was in full belief that I didn't like I couldn't do this with him anymore. And you know, throughout relationship and marriage, like you get to those points, but this time I was like, this needs to end. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but this needs to end. So I go stay with my family and he was, gracious enough to know that I was going through a lot. And so he really he really just was a rock in those moments. He was like, "Let's talk about this when you get home." And he really just stayed there for me through all of this, which I'm so grateful for. So I'm in freak out mode. He's like, she's in freak out mode, but for some reason he was still committed to me and I couldn't figure out how or why he still wanted to stay committed to me. So I go and I'm with my family and I spend a week there and I decide I had a feeling at some point or no. So this was the moment in time where I was like remembering your story and I was like, I think Elena just got baptized and was sharing her testimony. And so I'm going to like I'm in the midst of all this travel and I'm with my family and nothing makes sense and I don't really have anyone around me to make sense of all of this. My mom and family are Christian, but it's like I don't feel like anyone could understand what I've just gone through and coming out of the new age and all these spiritual things into this like but then I thought of you. And I was like I went to your page and I was reading your testimony and I was like, whoa, I can so relate. Like I feel like I'm starting to realize and see things that I haven't seen before. And then I saw what you had shared about your baptism and how that changed your life. And I'm like, maybe I need to get baptized. And so that seed was like planted. And so throughout the time with my family, my nervous system is starting to get more, regulated. I was in nature, water. We were in Big Bear. It felt just like beautiful and aligned. And I'm just like, I really want to get baptized. I just couldn't stop thinking about it because I remembered your testimony and I was still dealing with a lot of, discomfort and it would take me like 3 hours to go to bed. But at this point in time, I'm reading the Bible and I'm praying and getting this like new life practice established, which felt like just such a God thing to be pulled out of my life and given this opportunity to like regulate my nervous system, have a bath, have a Bible, have a journal, and like have all the time and space to like integrate everything that just happened. But of course, in the back of my mind the whole time, I'm just like, what is going home look like? How am I gonna like tell Anthony about everything that I'm going through right now? Like my mom gave me a Bible, I'm reading the Bible every day, I'm praying every day, and I don't know anything other than it just feels right and it feels like it's healing me. And so I'm just like, all I want to do is keep doing this. And I'm just like, what is Anthony gonna think about this? Is he gonna think I'm crazy? Like what are all my friends gonna think about this? Like and at the same time, I was just like, kind of like, I don't even care at this point because this is healing me, and that's all that matters. So I'm just gonna keep doing what's healing me, and then figure out the rest later. So later comes, and I fly back home, and I'm just like so worried. Like I'm like, Anthony and I had talked while I was away, and he's listening to me and everything I'm going through, but of course he's just like, I got baptized without him. I'm going through this acute transformation without him. So it was really scary. And we sat down and we were just like, okay, so what does all of this mean now? And it was so scary. I'm not gonna lie. I was like at a moment where I was just like, he can decide that he doesn't want to be with me anymore. And I'm gonna have to be okay with that. Um, so I was like, well, this is what I've been going through, and this is what's changing in my life, and this is what I'm feeling, and this is what I'm thinking. And he's just like, well, what does that mean for us? And I'm like, I don't know right now, but this is where I'm at right now. And so we just committed to loving each other through this and finding the common ground. So, I think the beautiful thing is that we came together out of a friendship. And so we had a really solid friendship base, which allowed us to move through this with care and compassion for each other. But it has been very rocky. It was, we're getting to a smoother ground now, but there was definitely quite a few moments where I'm just like, are we gonna make it through this? But every time we did, it strengthened my faith in us even more. And then in my questioning, I'm starting to realize he's questioning things too. And then he's resonating with certain things I'm starting to land on. And I'm just like, maybe we will end up walking this path together, like in some miracle way. And next thing you know, like I'm sharing Bible passages with him and it's resonating with him. And he's like, wow, I'm starting to see things I haven't seen before. And we're heavily involved in our community. And so we were looking at all these different characteristics of our community and how the community has influenced our marriage over the last year and a half. And we both came to the conclusion that we've been in a marriage that's like all about sovereignty. But in order for me to get through not only this health thing, but this entire new belief that I have, we need to be like more dependent on each other. And this sovereignty thing that we've been like preaching and that we got married under the pillar of is not going to work because I actually need him and I needed him many times throughout my health um crisis. And and that was what brought up so much issues in our relationship was that we, had this foundation of like you go do you and I'll go do me, but yet here I am in my suffering and he didn't know that I needed him. He didn't know what it meant to show up for me in those times because I always just had myself. I was always so sovereign. So we started to look at the foundation of what our values were in our marriage and realize this needs to change because I came back from that experience with my family so much more feminine. And so it was, starting to polarize us in these weird new ways. And we had always been in this like fluid, like I'm masculine and feminine and it works and we can both do all the things. But I come back and, I had just been through like 2.5 weeks of needing almost on-call care from him. And I'm just like much more feminine now. And I need care and I need help and I need all of these things and I need him to listen to me and I need him to hear me and I have all these emotions coming up. And so God was just working through us and like I felt like showing me what it was like to really be a woman and really be feminine. And in that, it caused a lot of questioning of how that was going to look into our marriage. So, yeah, so far, our relationship has gone through a lot of transformation and it's still transforming, but um, I hope that answers the big question around like how to deal with this with people, especially the close people in your life.
Yeah, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. One of I'll just remark really quickly, it's so interesting to hear how after you came to Jesus, you felt more feminine than ever. I had a
Yeah.
really similar experience right after my baptism. I've never been so connected to my femininity, even after literally a decade of tantra and polarity practices and archetypal work and all of the new age, like here's how to increase your feminine and be in this dance, which always felt to me like behavior modification. And this just feels like genuinely from my heart. I'm in my design that God put me in a woman's body. And I feel more, and my heart of flesh is so open, and I feel so nurturing. And it's so easy for me to allow my man to lead in ways that I couldn't do before when I was in my mind or I had my heart of stone. And I think that in my case, feels true because the ultimate feminine surrender is to God. And when I finally was able to do that, and I relate to the sovereignty, I'm not married, I didn't have that in a relationship dynamic, but I had that in my individual, independent, worldly, well educated, running a business ego. And that died completely when I came to Jesus. And there's nothing that I've experienced more liberating than coming to your knees and having this ego death, and then just letting the feminine essence bubble over into all of my life so naturally. So I love that you spoke to that. And I'm curious, maybe just briefly, what have you noticed? Because you were very deep in the New Age community in Austin, and what have you noticed as contrasting values or contrasting ways of seeing the world between these two belief systems, let's say?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like trust, being able to trust people, integrity and loyalty and generosity. Those were all values I was feeling like weren't fully active in the ways that I was desiring in my relationships. And the health, everything that I went through, I told everybody basically in my network what I was going through. So everyone knew. Um, and I guess I had different expectations of people, and we all have our own, expectations of what we desire out of relationships. But something about coming back to the Bible and the values rooted in what love is and what love is defined by in the Bible, like patience and kindness and generosity and self-control, all of these things, I felt myself desiring those things more and desiring to be surrounded by people that had those same values, because it felt like in the spiritual community, there's not really a foundation of like what is love. It's like everyone's just got their own definition of it. And so we're like unifying on this love principle, but there's not actually a value and like a standard attached to it. Yeah. So definitely a lot around values that I'm embodying more and learning about more, and my heart is being transformed into embodying more, because I can't change anyone around me. All I can do is work on myself and immerse myself in God's word and pray and allow him to change my character. But I definitely find myself seeking a godly character more and more. And I find myself seeing the areas of my life where my character hasn't been godly. And that's where I get to work on those things and repenting and, yeah, confessing to God.
Wow, that's so beautifully articulated. And having lived in the Bali spiritual community and, coached in that space for many, many years, like 5 or 6 years, I can really echo the observations that I had. I came to the same conclusions. And, we're taught in the Bible that how do we judge a true teacher from a false teacher? How do we evaluate whether a teaching is good for us or not? It's not if it feels good or if it feels true. It's the fruits of that teaching and that teacher, and how are they actually living their lives. And we know that when we abide in God, He gives us these amazing fruits of our life that are in alignment with His will and His design for us as creator. And that as soon as I started to get a taste of that, it was like, wow, this is so different than the fruit that my life was bearing inside this community. And when I look at people who are really deep in some of these practices, what fruit is it actually bearing or not bearing? And it's a pretty rude awakening. It felt like I got really sober when I started to look at some of those things. So, just to take us home for today, you've been so bold in sharing your story, and you shared your baptism on Instagram pretty much right after it happened. And you're doing this podcast interview with me, which I'm so grateful. And you've been speaking about your faith. I'm curious, just how has that experience been for you? Where have you found the courage to share about something that in today's world a lot of people want to unfollow you and run in the other direction, or literally hate on Christianity and
Mm,
followers of Jesus, and it's been that way for 2000 years. But
mm.
how have you found the strength, and what fruit has that borne in your life by choosing to share about it?
Honestly, I love this question. Honestly, the strength comes from I just want people to know what it feels like. And that's always been my desire. I've always felt like I want other people to get to feel what I'm feeling, whether it's freedom in their business or whether it's like exploring their passions. And now having this like deep spiritual awakening with Jesus, um, I feel like there's just nothing better. It has simplified my life. It has given me so much clarity. It has given me so much discernment. It has given me wisdom. It's given me grace. It's given me like a completely new walk of my day-to-day life, and it feels so good. And I just want people to know how great life can be and how peaceful life can be. And so, I was working out a lot of these different fears around things and trying to figure out like, is this a fear from the enemy, or is this like a personal fear? Is this something trying to hold me back from expressing, or is this something coming against me to stop me from expressing? And I had plenty of people around me advising me not to post and share, but there was like this part of me that was just like, I just feel like I have to. Like when stuff is going on in my life that I'm excited by, I can't not share. It feels like it goes against how God created me. I've always been, the type of person to just hop on camera and hop on video and make a YouTube channel about X, Y, or Z thing. And so this was no different for me. This was just another thing where I'm just like, I need people to know how amazing the healing power of Jesus is, because it's been so tangible and so real in my life. And yes, there's so many questions, and yes, there's, all these different things you can get into about the politics of it, but you can't deny the power of Jesus's healing works. And that is what a big part of his story was. And that's really what I'm standing for more than anything, more than religion, more than church, more than anything else. Like, all of that can be interpreted and lived out in whatever way anyone wants to live or believe, but walking with Jesus and experiencing the healing power of Jesus and getting to connect with Jesus is something unlike any other experience I've ever had in these spiritual practices. And, I've sought things out. I did a 10-day Vipassana retreat. I've done, breath work and yoga and sound healing and all the different things, but nothing has brought me to a state of peace like this. Nothing has allowed me access to a power that is greater than me in a way that impacted my life, not only once, but daily. And it's not something that I'm trying. It's not something I have to force myself to do. It's simply a surrender. It's a full surrender, and it's been a complete ego death to so many parts of me. The biggest part of me that has transformed is definitely my pride. That's the biggest thing I felt like grew, in learning all these spiritual practices and all these new age things. It's like you start to think you are God and that you have all this power. But I felt God really convicting me and showing me like, hey, that's actually not allowing you to experience my power, and like I can do these things for you, so it's funny because we think that we need personal power, but we just need God's power. Just like life can actually just be so much easier. And so sharing has just been a result of me realizing I don't need to make it hard for myself anymore. I can just surrender to the truth. I can accept that like God has his word written down somewhere I can access and I get to experience. And I just want people to know what it's like. Like, you can try all the other spiritual practices, but have you tried just reading the Bible and praying? Like, it doesn't even need to be a crazy life experience like mine. It can just be a simple, let me just try this new thing out and see what happens. And so that would be my invitation for anyone curious is like, just keep it simple. Just check out the Bible, flip to some pages, read, talk to God in prayer, and ask all of these things in Jesus' name.
Oof, I can't think of a better way to end this off. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so incredibly powerful. And I love how in the Bible it talks about when it talks about salvation and the power to save souls, it connects the blood of Christ and putting our faith in the gospel and the work that he did on the cross for us, and that God it didn't require us to ascend different layers of consciousness and go to reach him, but he descended to us and served the poor and the needy and healed and performed miracles and washed feet. That's the kind of God that we have. And he connects the blood of Christ to our testimony, that these are the two things that really can bring people salvation and peace and help them to step into the things that we've gotten to realize are so very real. And I got full chills everywhere when you said these other practices maybe gave me an insight or an experience once, but walking with Jesus gives me that every day. And I know since I've come to Jesus like 5 months ago now, I've been waiting for it to fade or disappear the way that other spiritual practices that impacted me. I was like,
Right?
wow, yeah, there's the high of the insight of a medicine ceremony or a big yoga retreat or some experience like that, and then it inevitably fades, and then you go chasing after it again because it doesn't stick with you, and that doesn't happen with
Yeah.
Jesus because you're walking with the
Yes.
king of the universe, the one who
Yeah.
created everything.
Mhm. Oh
Oh,
my gosh. Yeah. I couldn't have said it any better. It's so true. That what you just said is why I'm still so lit up and excited and on fire about it, is because you don't have to keep trying and seeking and searching. Like, yes, have a holistic lifestyle, and yes, take care of your body, and yes, do these things, but just know that it can be simple and you can have access to the presence of God every day through Jesus.
amen. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with the audience that we have listening to this and for sharing your story with so much power and grace and fire. And I love your story so, so much. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and listened with an open heart. We hope that there was some message today that just was delivered in the exact way that you needed it.